All right, welcome back to the 30th episode of the podcast that we call The Unknown. My name is Michael Volpe. I report from Chicago, Illinois, which is in Cook County, Illinois, and I write at michaelvolpe.substack.com. My partner is Richard Luthmann, who reports near Fort Myers, Florida, which is in Lee County, which is named for a big fat loser, Robert Edward Lee. Couldn't take Ulysses S. Grant, but he got his consolation prize for having a few things named after him, including a county in Florida. And you write at Luthmann.substack.com. That is spelled like your last name, Luthmann.substack.com. Last week we debated. I was nearly ready to reach through the screen and strangle your neck because of your pro-Russia stance, and now you're going to gloat because yesterday there was a deal. Tell everyone why Trump is the master negotiator. We have peace in Ukraine. Am I right?
Well, I don't have a pro-Russia stance. Let's get this straight. I never liked the Russians. I think that if we had a real CIA since the deep state takeover with George Bush the First, who was the CIA director, if we had a real CIA from that point on, Putin would have been killed in the late 90s, and we would never have to deal with him. But that being said, the politics as it is now, you got to deal with this guy. And I really do like what Trump did. What Trump did is he signaled that he's got the little bitch, Zelensky, under control. So now he can go to the table with Putin and actually negotiate. The problem is that Zelensky's like, in this way, that way, the other way. And Putin's laughing because Putin gets to say, oh, you don't have your own little bitch under control. You got to understand Putin's psychology. That's how he sees things. He's like, he runs things like a mob boss. So Trump has to act with him like a mob boss. And so he's saying the deal's not going to be good enough no matter what happens, right? Putin's going to come out and say, I want this, we want that, we want the other thing. His latest thing is he wants long-term peace. He wants this, he wants that. So they're not going to do a ceasefire. But Trump at least gets to show the world, listen, I got Zelensky under my thumb because he understands where his bread is buttered. And so now I can make a deal with Putin. And what he's done with Putin is he's actually loosened some stuff up with Putin in order to show him, look, the world is a little bit nicer when we are not at odds. But you know what? I can turn it back on tomorrow. And the drone attack that you saw in Moscow and some of the other stuff that happened could get turned up. The financial sanctions could get turned up. The cyber attacks can get turned up if you don't want to come to the table. So this is just it's a negotiating posture, and Trump is he's the art of the deal. He wrote the book, and we're seeing how it's playing out right now.
Right, he's doing fabulous. So by turning off the military intelligence and the funds, he created basically a mini Holocaust in Kursk and killed a whole bunch of people, which is ironic because Trump's whole deal is all of these people are dying needlessly, and that's how he brought Zelensky to the table. And so what you have is
let's stop. Go back to that, please. Go back to that article. Okay? Go back to the article. You put the article up, okay? And let's pull out the words here that are the very important part of that article. The last thing, Russia recaptured these settlements in the operations. Russian Defense Ministry claimed, right? We go up 2 paragraphs. The Ukrainian military has not commented, and they couldn't be independently verified. So this is what's called Russian propaganda. Michael, why do you love the Russians so much? I want to ask you that question.
I don't know how many villages they've captured, but a whole bunch of people were killed. That's for sure.
They say none of these claims can be independently verified. When Trump tells me that this happened, I will believe the president of the United States, the leader of the free world. I do not believe Vladimir Putin's bullshit, and I do not believe Vladimir Zelensky's bullshit either. Trump's the only one I believe because Trump is right about everything.
I'm going to surprise you. Someone agrees with you. We're going to go to France 24. This is a French news network, but they speak English. I bet you never thought we would listen to a French network. Hold on. I screwed one thing up. I bet you thought we'd never listen to a French network speaking in English. Let's listen to what this lady, now this lady's actually from the US, but it's a French guy interviewing her.
And keeps saying this is possibly as good a piece of news that Ukraine could get. Do you agree with that assessment?
This is excellent for Ukraine. So Ukraine has done a few things through this meeting today in Saudi Arabia. The first one is that it has gotten back some of the most important things it has lost over the last week, notably intelligence sharing and the arms support from the United States. The intelligence sharing is a crucial minute-by-minute thing that Ukraine needs in order to have the strongest possible position it can. It also has put the ball in Russia's court. So something that Ukrainians have been trying to get the Americans to understand is how they do want peace and do want to have a solid, long-lasting peace. But there has been a perception that the Ukrainians have been the harder actor to work with. Now it's going to be on Russia to show.
All right.
So here we go. The art of the deal.
Right. No, the art of the deal. Now let's look so far at what the art of the deal has brought from the Russian perspective. From the Russian perspective, because that is important. So Putin's mouthpiece said, we have to wait. We're going to talk to the here. They're awaiting details. They're not really that excited about this ceasefire so far.
That's right, because Putin is not an idiot. He makes deals too, and you know what's he going to do? Jump in the deal and say thank you, President Trump? Of course not. He's got to be the tough guy. And he's got to say so. He's got to go.
You're right. He invaded a country, took territory through naked aggression. So he should definitely negotiate the best terms possible. That's a great way to make sure he doesn't invade any more countries.
The best way to make sure he doesn't invade any more countries is U.S. direct foreign investment into the Ukraine and this mineral deal and everything else. Because, you know, as soon as the deal is inked, the ceasefire, and then we draw the lines, and they stand that no one's going to cross. No one will cross those lines because they're backed by the United States and they're backed by Donald Trump. That's the point. You have a bunch of idiots in George W. Bush, in Barack Obama, and in Joe Biden that basically Putin, took their lunch money every time. Well, now we're going to have actually something there which is tangible. That is mineral extraction and everything else. U.S. interest in Ukraine, development in Ukraine, monetary and economic, restructuring of the country and rebuilding of the country, and it's backed by Donald Trump, who will have no qualms with going in there and doing what he has to do to defend American interests.
Right. So, in other words, boots on the ground in case.
No, I would bomb the shit out of them. We got.
Bomb them. All right. Again, the guy who wants to stop World War III is going to go ahead and bomb another country. All right.
It already happened. The drone attacks happened the other day in Moscow. They had the biggest drone attacks we've seen in a long time.
They've had
Moscow itself, and they know that these are parts of war. It's not a high-level escalation with these types of drone attacks where it hits, industrial targets and things like that. Okay, they're in a war and they know what's going on, but they have to understand that these things happen, and these type of retributions happen when geopolitical events get to that level. We do it all the time in countries like Iran. We hit the industrial places. When they make attack, Israel does it all the time. They hit different places. We're going to ensure that like Iran doesn't get a nuke. Well, you don't think that we won't hit strategic Russian targets if they come and try to screw with American interests overtly? Come on, that's why Greenland's so important at this point. That's why there's so many things, so many moving pieces here that Trump is putting into place to advance American interests. So this is one of them. Yeah,
I think lobbing a few drones isn't going to do anything. I think the only way to stop Putin's aggression is a ground war, and MAGA is not going to go for that. We'll see. You now agree that he actually has to get tough with Putin. I think what Putin's going to do is like a poison pill, though he may not see it as a poison pill, but he's going to renegotiate that deal, possibly demand that Zelensky be replaced as a part of the ceasefire. If he did that, would you be okay with that? Would you be willing? Would you say
I would tell Zelensky, if I was his advisor, I would tell him, Vladimir, you had a good run. Your Swiss bank account is full. And now you can leave and pretend that you're Winston Churchill. Because the Brits did the same thing to Churchill after he won them the war. So you can say, we won the war and they turned me into Churchill. And maybe in 20 years, like Churchill, they'll make you the prime minister once again for a swan song.
All right, I got it. So Putin will invade a country through naked aggression, take some territory, force out the leader of the other country, and that would definitely not be any kind of a reason for him to attack any other countries. All right, so Tucker Carlson is simping for Qatar now. And he sat down with, I don't know where he is in the hierarchy of this non-elected government. And these questions were so absurd, but I wanted to play just this one part. He's going to ask him what would happen if we attacked Iran, or someone attacked Iran's nuclear facilities. And here is what the mouthpiece for Qatar, which is next door to Iran, said.
So there's a great deal of pressure in Washington on the White House and on the Congress to participate in or sign off on an attack, an aerial bombardment of the Iran nuclear sites, however many there actually are, one of which, as you said, is directly across from you. So you think about this a lot. What would be the consequences if that happens? And that's not theoretical, as you know, that could happen soon. What would happen next?
Well, I think it will just will be a start of a war that will spread all over the region. And
all right, if the U.S. or others attack Iran's nuclear sites, would that start a regional war?
Well, maybe. But the issue is this: what's in place already is these economic sanctions, right? Mm-hmm. On Iran. And Iran, there's big problems in Iran. People are going starving. They can't eat. There are levels of revolt already in Iran, and unrest in Iran at this point. It's a powder keg already because of what's going on. Now, there's a fundamental point that Iran cannot possess nuclear weapons because the first thing that they would do is use them on Israel. Okay? And so if you look at it from that perspective, and Israel's right to self-defense, and the annihilation of Israel, you know what? If the war gets started because we destroyed the nuclear sites and not because Jerusalem got nuked, I don't feel so bad about that. Okay? If the war got started because we took out their nuclear sites and we have a non-nuclear Iran, we have to deal with that. I like that better than the smoldering rubble of Jerusalem. So yes, that's my view.
All right. We don't know what will happen in the future, but it would not be the first time that Israel or others attacked Iran's nuclear sites. This is a whole host of different attacks on nuclear sites, the killing of a nuclear scientist. Not once did it lead to a regional war. And the last time was in late, and it doesn't have it. I think this is an old one, but was, I think, October of last year, while there was a war going on, and that didn't lead to a regional war. And Tucker did not point that out when the guy was going on his long diatribe about how if somebody attacks Iran's nuclear sites, that it'll lead to a regional war. Tucker doesn't. He loses no credibility for this stuff. He had a historian on that said Churchill was the real villain. He calls nuclear weapons like demons. Now he's simping for Qatar. It doesn't matter. He just grows in popularity.
He puts it out there and gives them the platform, lets them talk, and he lets people decide. Everybody, there's a great book. I don't know if you read it, which was Sandworm, about the attack that Bush 1 had started, and then Obama had continued with the nuclear weapons facilities in Iran using code. If you know about how nuclear weapons are distilled, or the uranium is distilled, they have these cylinders, and we do it with our technology with laser beams today. But some of the older technology that they're using is centrifuges, and we had a code that got snuck into their facilities that was a virus, basically, that made their cylinders go haywire and destroyed their nuclear capability, set them back years, which I think is the most important attack. That was at the end of the Bush one, or George Bush, the second administration, junior, and then going into Obama, and Obama actually had the victory there in cutting down their nuclear capabilities through that. But I think it's Sandworm is the book. But that's the type of stuff that, it's not these attacks and taking out these
And
scientists and
and
everything else. That's the big.
the thing,
The big things are some of these 21st century forward-looking attacks on code, on capability that are going to be the most effective in knocking out the Iranian capacity to build a nuclear weapon, because they're the sick people that they don't want 1,000 nuclear warheads. They just want one. That's the biggest problem we have out there.
But what do you think? Tucker is saying that Churchill was the real villain of World War II. He's simping for Qatar. It doesn't matter. He just gains more popularity. That's fine. It's no big deal.
I think that he puts out things that are there for potentially for shock value, in the sense that look at Abraham Lincoln. There are some historians that look at him like an authoritarian dictator for the suspension of habeas corpus.
Mm-hmm.
Rehnquist wrote the book. All the
I know. Those historians subscribe to the lost cause of the Confederacy. I'm well aware of those historians. They have been largely marginalized. However, books and movies, particularly like Birth of a Nation, the 1915 one, I believe it's 1915, from D.W. Griffith, has grown that popularity. But be that as it may, this guy grows popularity for saying things that are asinine.
It's not marginalized, Mike. My thought I was finishing was that the idea about the habeas corpus suspension by Lincoln during the war was detailed in a book by Rehnquist, the Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice, all the laws but one. So these topics are important topics to put out there. I agree with you that if Mike Volpe was asking the questions, it might be a better interview. Probably would be a much better interview.
He would never
be a better interviewer, Mike, than Tucker Carlson. I'll say that anytime. But I think you do your better homework than him too, and I think you cut people off a lot better than Tucker does. Tucker lets everybody speak, and go on and on and on and on, and it doesn't get to the point of things. I think that you're right that he could be a better interviewer, but he does raise issues, topics that other people won't, and he should, he shouldn't get punished for that. He shouldn't say that he's marginalized. That's the whole point.
You think it's important to raise the topic that Churchill may have been the real villain of World War II as opposed to Hitler? That's a topic we should be discussing.
Sure. Because if it's that poor, then the counter argument, the fact that we're talking about it, makes it important. It should be part. There's no facts out there that should be, unassailable. We should be able to talk about it in questions, even if it's if you can say it with a straight face, if you can make an argument with a straight face, then it belongs in the marketplace of ideas. That's what I think. Now, some things are.
I'm not saying he should be. I'm not saying he should be banned from it. I just don't understand why his career.
But you are.
I don't understand why his career never takes a hit. Why people continue to give him a bigger and bigger platform when he continues.
It's entertaining, right? That's why he's extremely entertaining.
Yeah, I didn't find the interview entertaining, but all right. We have another topic where I find a negative article about one of Trump's appointees, and you defend him blindly. That's actually, we'll call that. So this is about Dan Bongino, who is the designated deputy director of the FBI. I say designated because right now he's still a radio host hawking gold and other things, and that's no big deal, right? It's okay if he finishes off his radio show. This is from Mother Jones, that slightly to the left. I'm kidding. No, way, way, way far left website. Do you have any problem with this? He's going to, by the way, he'll finish up this week. Vince Coglianese will take over. Vince used to be my editor, among other people's editors at the Daily Caller. I liked him as an editor. He wasn't my favorite, but he was a good editor. So I know Vince a little bit, and he's got a radio show on WMIL. I assume that radio show will end. So congratulations to Vince. But he'll start on Monday. Dan still has to finish off his tour, and then on Monday, I believe the 17th, he'll be the FBI deputy director. No problem with this, right?
The most scarce substance in the known human universe are Chuck Norris's tears. The second most scarce substance are Dan Bongino's tears. He doesn't need to be defended by anyone, including Rich Luthmann. But what he's doing should be commended, because he made a commitment to his sponsors, his advertisers, and everybody else in his media company that he would be doing this. And he's going into public service, right? And so he's going and he's going to transition in, but he had to, move along. and he had to, tidy up ends, and he's going to commit himself fully to public service in the same way that he committed himself to his media company. I have no problem with him doing that because it's responsible. He's a responsible person. Now, not everybody is in the same position as Elon Musk. Okay, not everyone has billions of dollars. He's a guy that was a New York City police officer. He went in as a the police academy as a regular guy. It's either a lot of people in New York, when you grow up in New York in the outer boroughs, the choice is a badge and a gun or a hammer and nails. If you're going to that's your choice. So this is a guy who's made it on his own, and I think that he should be commended for that. I don't see any problem with that whatsoever.
Elon made it on his own as well. Dan is pretty well off because his radio show has exploded. But let's make it clear, Elon, his dad gave him a little money, but nothing compared to what he has, and he made it on his own as well. The Elon Files segment, we talk about something related to Elon Musk each and every week. Now, there was apparently a dust-up at the latest cabinet meeting, and in particular between Elon and Marco Rubio and Elon and Sean Duffy, if you believe the reports, which was by the New York Times and others. However, Donald Trump has said there was no dust-up, no big deal. If you believe the reports, what Rubio and Duffy were upset about is that it is their departments and Elon Musk cannot go fire people. What do you think? Can Elon Musk fire people, or should he allow Marco Rubio to fire people at state? And I think Duffy is Secretary of Transportation, and every other secretary, even the ones who weren't upset. And according to the New York Times, others would have stood up, but because of how intense the blow up was, they decided not to weigh in. What do you think? First of all, do you believe the report? Do you think there was a dust up?
That's number one. I think that it's fake news because it's being reported by the New York Times, The Hill, and everything.
And others.
Their goal is to disrupt Trump's momentum and what he's trying to do. The fact of the matter is, even if it is, let's assume it is true. Let's assume that the reporting can be believed and there was a quote unquote dust up. The question is, what kind of dust up was it? Was it a heated disagreement like you and I have almost constantly Basically. On our show, or was Basically. It something where no
one said they went to blows.
Yeah,
they were, but they were not just speaking back and forth according to reports. They were yelling.
Yeah, well, that's the question. The question is, is it yelling? But the question is this: the buck stops at somebody, and the buck stops with the President of the United States first and foremost, right? But in our constitutional structure, you have a United States Senate, you have a confirmation process, and with each of these agencies, the buck stops with the person that the Senate has confirmed. Elon Musk, as much as I love him, has not been confirmed by the United States Senate. And so Marco Rubio is 100% correct in his legal interpretation that he has a full reign over what he can do in his department that is subject only to the discretion of the President of the United States. Now, if he does something and the President wants something done, and Elon tells the President, this is what I think should be done, and the President agrees, and that's a different story. Then he tells Elon, he tells Marco, I want this done. But Elon doesn't have direct control in any way, shape, or form. He's a consultant. That's what he is. He's probably the most high-profile consultant, management consultant, and staffing consultant in human history, and efficiency consultant in human history. So he's giving recommendations. Now, would they be foolish, the cabinet heads, the agency heads, not to take his recommendations? They'd be very foolish, but they should consider his recommendations and then make their own decisions given their independent judgment, because our constitutional structure says that the senators that we elected have confirmed the person that is the cabinet member and the agency head, and we have to respect that first and foremost.
I agree. I don't think Elon should be allowed to fire anyone. And I think President Trump can give directives. He fires the people he appoints, but it's up to Rubio to decide who underneath those, and Duffy and all the cabinet secretaries, who underneath those gets fired. And I think Trump gives the general directive, but if President Trump is saying, you got to fire this mid-level staffer, that's not going to work well, because then the secretary is not running their department.
So hopefully that gets. Wait a second. he can come in. I don't think he can go, he could probably do it. He's the president and target a specific person. He didn't like that person. But I think that Trump could say, Secretary Rubio, for the people that fit within this category of persons pose a national security risk, in my opinion, as the chief executive officer of the United States, or have some type of risk. I would like all the people that fit within this category to be removed from the State Department. I think that is totally within the bounds of what the executive power of the president.
I think he could do it, but then then the secretary's not running their department, and you create other problems. I agree he could do it. Ultimately,
if that's the hill the secretary wants to die on, let him die on that hill. If the president wants it, the president gets it. And if the president's not going to get it from a certain member of his cabinet, that person's not going to be a member of his cabinet for long.
That I agree with as well. All right. Can you explain why we're having a trade war with Canada, Mexico? What's going on? I'm sure you love this as well. You probably like to pay more for steel.
The latest that just happened was that the Canadians announced their reciprocal tariffs back. So what we had yesterday was there was a back and forth on the trade, and Ontario, the government there with Ford, who's the guy in charge of Ontario, that came up early in the morning, and he said, it was Doug Ford. I think Rob Ford was his brother. He was the old mayor of Toronto, the one who was smoking crack to get votes. But Doug Ford basically was talking tough in the morning. By the afternoon, he had a conversation with Howard.
That's what this article. He had a conversation
with Howard Lutnick, and Howard Lutnick calmed him down. By the end of the day, he was a pussycat. But this morning, the new Canadian Prime Minister came forward and just said that they're putting a 25% reciprocal tariff on steel and other minerals and things like that. So they're trying to flex their muscle, in large part because Canada has elections coming up in the next few months. So the Liberal Party has to show that they're not pushovers, and the Conservative candidate is gaining ground in that race. So I think that politics plays a part in that with our U.S.-Canada relationship. But the problem we have is this. Okay, Trump needs to resolve the Mexico, Canada, Western Hemisphere issues on tariffs and everything else very, very quickly, because the big issue is the trade war with China. Okay, and that's the thing. We have to own the Western Hemisphere. And
first, you haven't answered my question though. Why are we in a trade war with Canada? What is the end game?
Because they've been ripping us off for years. They have no military, and yet they're going to turn around and try to demand things. We protect them. We treat them like the 51st state. And frankly, Trump saying, if we treat them like that,
is he hoping that they will remove tariffs? What is he?
He's hoping they will remove the RAV4 factory from Ontario and a few of the other car factories, a few of the other manufacturing, and move them south of the border again. That's what Trump is angling for. He's looking to get the Rust Belt to 50%
tariffs just to remove a few factories. Did we or did we not?
Just to remove a few factories. Wait. He made a promise to the American people to revitalize the Rust Belt. That's what he's going to do.
Whoa. Are you familiar with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who negotiated that again?
Oh, Trump did. Yeah, of course.
Oh, so 6 years ago. Why are we issuing tariffs if we had a trade agreement that our current president negotiated? What is the problem?
Things have changed so poorly in the last 4 years, and mismanagement by the Biden administration that's not worth. That's about as worthwhile as the Paris Accords. So Trump should rip that up and renegotiate it like the way he needs.
I got it. We'll negotiate a trade agreement, and 7 years later we'll renegotiate the same trade agreement that I said was great in 2018.
Right. Because Biden pissed all over it the past 4 years. Of course.
Because Biden pissed all over it.
Yes.
I understand.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. He shut down the pipeline and all the flow of the natural gas to the East Coast. Come on, there's all this stuff that should be happening. The price of energy should be $50 a barrel for oil. We shouldn't be energy dependent on anybody else, let alone Canada for electricity. It's out of control. So that deal was negotiated understanding American energy independence. That was a basic material presupposition in that deal. We have to get back to that, and we have to have Canada renegotiate to understand where their bread is buttered. Frankly,
Mhm.
that's just it. You know, we're
Right.
going to
I,
have to be
I,
big changes. Mike,
I
there's gonna
can
be big
see.
changes in the Western Hemisphere. There's going to, mark my words, in the next year, big changes in the Western Hemisphere because China's getting booted out of the Western Hemisphere. All the inroads they've made in the last 4 years because Biden looked the other way, probably because his Swiss bank account got loaded up. But look, Puerto Rico may become an independent sovereignty, right? We may have a Greenland, right? We're probably going to have the Panama Canal back under our control. And the number one trading partner in every country in Latin America will be the United States of America. Okay, we'll be the number one partner as opposed to China, which is number one with a whole swath of them, especially in South America, where they're making beachheads, and in the Caribbean islands, where they're making beachheads. This whole Turks and Caicos tourism thing, this is a whole State Department thing to get China out of Turks and Caicos. They're in the Bahamas. They're all over the place. They're in Barbados. You go to any of those islands, and China's making inroads into our hemisphere. Well, we have to secure our hemisphere. And the biggest thing is you got to get the big dogs in line, get Canada in line, get Mexico in line. Then you get Brazil in line. Argentina's already with us. Then we can start killing some of these, this communist philosophy, this cultural Marxism in Colombia, Venezuela, some of these other places. And then once we get our house in order here, we'll be strong enough to tell China, you don't want to even think about it. Because we got to get him out of our hemisphere. That's what it is. That's what it is.
He negotiated a trade deal, and now he wants to renegotiate it 7 years later. Art of the deal.
Right.
All right. We're done with current events. We want to get to our segment on what the Hales, Jeremy Hales, I think it was this past, I don't remember when, but he went off on us. Now, I would play the video of Jeremy Hales going off on us, except he is a stickler for copyright, and he would immediately go to YouTube and claim copyright. So I won't do that. But I did write down a few notes about things he said about the two of us. So I have them in my email.
Can we preface this first? Mm-hmm. I'm going to do my best Jeremy Hales impersonation.
All right.
Please, I'm under attack. Send me money. Send me money. Send me money. I'm under attack. These people, what are they doing to me? Look what these terrible journalists, these terrible guys, they're out there. We're going to go to the federal authorities. We're going to go to these people and those, send us money. Send us money. Send us money. Guy.
He does like to ask for money all the time. So to sum up, Jeremy Hales sued a couple of his neighbors. Someone put up signs. He's certain it's his neighbors, falsely accusing him of being a rapist. He sued them for some other things. Those are definitely frivolous. You and I examined some affidavits of people who picked up the signs. Those look suspicious. This looks like a frivolous lawsuit. He has since filed a new lawsuit against 10 people, including other critics. I'm sure a lawsuit against us is coming.
Bruce Matskin got sued too.
Right. And Bruce Matskin, who represents John Cook and Michelle Preston, who are his neighbors, he got sued in the new lawsuit. He sues everyone. We're going to talk about his divorce. You want to see wow. Wait till you see his divorce. Okay. So here are some notes that I wrote down. He says, solicitation from others to harass and break the civil protection order. He got a civil protection order against John Cook and Michelle Preston. He got it in Ohio, even though everyone lives in Florida. That's called forum shopping. Local authorities are taking this very, very seriously. There are other things that are going to happen with Otter Creek authorities. There's no doubt whatsoever that the walruses, that Deuce, these are nicknames for people he doesn't like, that stupid dump, have been solicitation for defamation, solicitation for harassment under the civil protection order. The local authorities here in Florida are requesting that you and us put all of our screenshots together, our screen recordings together, and timestamps. Now, he is saying, wait, I'm going to get it up. He is saying that this right here, it's somehow illegal. This is a fundraiser that I created to pay for me to write stories about the Hales drama. Now, can you explain to me what he is? Can you get inside his head and explain?
I can totally get inside his head.
Before you do that, if you're a rebel, you should go and contribute more to this, because apparently it's illegal. I don't know if it's illegal for you to contribute. It's definitely illegal in some way, according to Jeremy Hales.
Well, here's how it works, right? And because I understand how hallucinogens affect the mind, so I can get into Jeremy Hales' mind. Okay, so in my mind, what I'm saying is that there's a vast conspiracy to come get me. And it's like almost like they're choking me to death. And I need oxygen in my lungs. And that oxygen is money. So send me money so I can still breathe and I don't die. But part of the people that are choking me is this crazy guy named Mike Volpe, who's not really a journalist. He's a PR guy. And he is the hired gun of Bruce Matskin, who's this evil, evil man up in Massachusetts who's trying to ruin all my fun and take away my oxygen. So send me money. Send me money so I can breathe and I can fight another day, because this fundraiser is just a way for them to shovel money as part of their grand conspiracy to harm me. And they can shovel it to this evil, evil PR person masked as a journalist named Michael Volpe, who's saying all these terrible, terrible things about me that were going to the federal authorities and the Otter Creek authorities. And those people don't do nothing. They do things every day. Every day the federal people do something. And every day the Otter Creek people do something. What it is, I have no idea. But send me money so I can continue to breathe. That's what I think.
By the way, he's given us nicknames. We're going to call him Jay Anon, because the arrests are always coming. Listen, here's what I think of what he said. Let me get this up. Let me get this up. I can't say this better than this guy right here. Here we go. From Billy Madison, that great Adam Sandler movie.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And it's true. His followers started sending him timestamps. He did make his followers stupider. Here, I got one more movie reference. Do you notice how often he used solicitation?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hold on. So this is how I feel about his solicitation reference.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
So, Jeremy, here's what solicitation means. And look, I just went to Google. Okay. It's not that hard. All right. Solicitation is the act of asking or encouraging someone to do something, especially a crime. It's what he's saying is that I went on 2 Lees in a Pie and she promoted my fundraiser. That's not solicitation, Jeremy. You're not using it correctly. You never used it correctly. You have no idea what solicitation means, but all you had to do was Google it. It's not hard. Just Google the word.
He has to leave his echo chamber. Only certain portions of Google get into the echo chamber, and only certain portions get out. You have to understand that. It must be great. You can define your own words inside the echo chamber. So solicitation is anything that people do that harms Jeremy Hales. That's solicitation.
All right. Now, I thought of one other thing. I don't know if you remember Judge Diane Walker.
Oh, yeah.
She's an Idaho judge. She likes to give custody to abusers. And last month, she filed this. And she was up for election in November. It's a retention election. Retention elections almost never lose. So she was the lowest performing judge at 75%. That's how ridiculous retention elections are. She was not happy winning. She filed a complaint because she found out people were opposing her nomination, and I was included in this complaint. And here it is. A group of individuals formed the political committee to defeat Diane Walker in her retention election. This group had organized meetings, purchased signs, sold signs, and had a stacked writer write defaming, untruthful articles. They also obtained telephone numbers to make robocalls and texts regarding the Vote No campaign. They used the street address company to hide their actual address. The individuals directly involved were Veronica Baez, Sharon Carswell, Kimberly Greiner, Jeff Murray, and Michael Volpe, according to their social media postings. Baez purchased 70 vote no signs and was selling them at $7, $10 each. That's $700, including free delivery. I believe someone paid Mr. Volpe to organize a campaign against me. He advertised that he would write an article about me for $300 contributed. Volpe actually has 19 GoFundMes. They're not GoFundMes. GoGetFunding.com. I love that website. Get it right. They need the traffic, not GoFundMe. To attack political figures, primarily judges, including myself. There were shirts for sales. I have multiple screenshots, in excess of 1,000 of these individuals' campaigns. I have only attached a few to support some of the claims. But what she was saying is that this was a political action committee that wasn't registered as a political action committee. She can't believe that people would just oppose her because they don't like her. She thinks there's like so the campaign violation, according to her, is that it should have been registered. And
you have to understand, Mike, that
but hold on. So she and Hales, they are very upset that I create fundraisers to pay for me to write articles. And the way they are connected is I'm living rent-free in both their heads. All right, go ahead.
You have to understand that this woman as a judge is a very scary person because she doesn't understand the First Amendment. If you understand what journalism is, it's basically it's three basic components. One of them is news gathering. The second portion is organization, composition, and the third part is dissemination for mass media purposes or for a mass audience. And so the news gathering portion of what you do, what I do, what any journalist does, there's no prohibition to receive funding to support the news gathering portion. There's also no prohibition to receive money for the media dissemination portion. And with respect to the composition portion, the organization portion of the ideas, the message, as long as your independent journalistic judgment is not swayed by the money that you receive, as long as you are acting based on your own journalistic discretion, then that you can receive money for that too. And the federal courts have said the source of funds of a journalist cannot be easily subpoenaed. It has to be a real good reason because there's a First Amendment protection there. Because if you can get the source of journalists' funding, it's a chilling effect on journalism and a chilling effect on the press. So, Hales is grasping at straws. So is this judge who should know even better. When you knock on the door of a journalist, you start to get real big First Amendment problems. You get a strategic lawsuit against public participation type issues. I am begging Jeremy Hales and his idiot lawyer, Shockett, to come sue me or potentially sue you. It'll be the funnest day of our lives because at that point, I'm going to own all the shit that he owns. It's going to be like that. I guess it was a movie where you go and you kill the other person and take their shit. That's what I'm going to do to Jeremy Hales in the court of law. I will hit him with such an anti-SLAPP lawsuit if he tries to come after me as a journalist, because I have the temerity to report against something that I think is despicable, which is namely his anti-Semitism and his normalization of hate and his normalization of these crazy things. He's also a huckster. He's in the same mold as I've said it before. He's a talentless Jimmy Swaggart, and so he's a huckster preacher. And he uses a lot of the rhetorical techniques that these terrible preachers use in order to solicit monies in the worst way. The best preachers, you never hear them asking for money. They're giving out a message, and people are moved to contribute because of how good their message is. This guy's asking for money. His message is send me money so I can continue doing what I'm doing. And what he continues to do is ask people for money. He's your typical con job. He really is, in my opinion.
I think the most troubling part is the series of frivolous lawsuits that he uses. One, to try to silence critics. He's sued 10 people. I think 7 or 8 of them are YouTubers who are putting out content that he thinks is negative about this YouTube story. And YouTube should be aware of it, and they should weigh in. Are you comfortable with one YouTuber suing a whole bunch of other YouTubers? Don't you think this is the sort of thing that should just be decided on YouTube? Why can Jeremy Hales not just point out the wrongness of everybody else's opinion in his own YouTube channel? Why must he sue?
Yeah.
And neither Walker nor Hales have any respect for the First Amendment. They both think that the only people who have a right to the First Amendment are people who say positive things about them. Anyone who says anything negative, they don't have a right to the First Amendment. We'll sue them with frivolous lawsuits. We'll file this frivolous election campaign nonsense, and we're going to try to silence you in this way.
There's big issues, Mike. There's big issues there with what you said because of Section 230. Right. So in order for these platforms like YouTube.
Wait, hold on. Before you go on, what is Section 230?
I was about to say Section 230 is the immunity statute for platforms like YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and all that. So they're hosts of content. They're not responsible for the content so long as they say as neutral arbiters, and they don't get involved in it like an economic relationship or any type of promotional relationship with one party over another. So they're going to stay out of this. They're going to have these content and community standards. And like you said before, a lot of them are AI driven. So it's not even like a person is going to look at it in the first instance. They have safeguards in where something's complained about enough that it gets taken down. Now there's going to be a reckoning for these social media companies though, because by virtue of that, they're allowing for certain speech to dominate other speech. So somebody like Hales, who has 750,000 viewers or 1 million viewers or whatever he has, could tell his audience to go target other people to kill their speech by killing the platform and making complaints against them. And the community standards don't have a viable way to police themselves on these social media platforms. So that's a ripe lawsuit for them to show how they are, that they're the Section 230 immunity, that they've run afoul of it by their own policing. Their own policing isn't good enough. So it shouldn't be handled necessarily by the social media companies in speech, because the larger people and the hosts and everybody else, big tech can always silence out the smaller people. That being said, if the case gets to the court, and we've talked about this before, there's something called the strategic lawsuit against public participation, the SLAPP lawsuit. That is what I think is the place where it should be. That's the forum. And frankly, I would love to bring YouTube in on a case like that, because I think that they have potential liability, because there are exceptions. The Ninth Circuit has recognized some, and some of the other circuits have, for liability for these internet providers that puts them outside of 230. And I think the anti-SLAPP type lawsuit situation is the perfect place as a test case, in the sense that, if there's strategic participation, if they're using the litigation, but they're also combining it with misuse of the community standards, and the social media platforms are going along with it, if they're acquiescing, then they're liable. And if there's any type of economic relationship that they're making money off of Jeremy Hales more than they're making off of all these other guys that the Hales is suing, then you got a jackpot on a counterclaim for SLAPP against YouTube, as well as Jeremy Hales, and against Shockit too. If you want to bring a claim, Shockit and Hales is third, and YouTube is third party. This could be a great case to make a lot of money for these people. I'm just wishing. I hope he sues me. I want to get in on this. There's going to be a lot of money in here if they do this the right way.
Could YouTube create a community standard that says if you sue another YouTuber and that lawsuit is dismissed under
No, they can't. They cannot, because there's the First Amendment and the redress of grievances. You cannot limit somebody's redress of grievance with a contract of adhesion like that. That would in no way, shape, or form be good. Think about it. I can't. You can sign an agreement. You covenant not to sue somebody, but there's a high standard on that because it's a constitutional right. To waive a constitutional right is a high standard.
No,
you can't tell somebody, I'm not going to sue somebody in the court if I feel like I'm aggrieved. That's crazy. That's a crazy thing.
All right, so they can't do that. All right, I don't know what the liability on YouTube is, but he definitely is litigious, which brings us to our next part of the segment. This is his divorce. Now check this out. It started on 10/17/2014, and let's look. You think it's done? You think it's done? You think it's done? You think it's done? Is it done? Not yet. We're in 2021. We're in 2023 is when it finally finished. This was a knockdown, drag it out, nasty divorce, however you want to say it, that lasted almost a decade. Interestingly, his ex-wife filed to have a custody evaluator. I think that's all garbage. So she was mucking up the process with that. I noticed at least 2 guardian ad litem were appointed. That mucks up the process. They both filed contempt motions on each other. They both filed motions for sanctions. This thing went on and on and on. And you would think that if you got out of a near-decade divorce, the last thing you want to do is wind up in court again, but not Jeremy Hales. He went from this, immediately filed a lawsuit against John Cook and Michelle Preston, and now he's filed a second lawsuit. This guy lives in court. It's not a positive reflection on your character if you constantly, especially if it's offensive, wind up in court, in my opinion. You want to add anything?
Well, he's a litigious guy, you know. That's
part of it.
Part of it is that it's the American way, is that you can be litigious and you can hire a lawyer and you can go bring your claims. But that's why we have Rule 11 in the federal courts, and that's why we have anti-SLAPP lawsuits to try to curtail this. The guy who's the big problem in this is not Jeremy Hales so much as it's Randall Shocking, because he's the one that's the attorney and he's the one that should know better, you know. And I think that Bruce is a little bit hot under the collar about Mr. Shocking. I think that Bruce was served, and I think that Bruce was very, very unhappy with the fact that he was served and with Mr. Shocking, and he even expressed it to Mr. Shocking. So that's
all right. So speaking of Mr. Shockett, look at this. Wednesday, March 5th, 2025, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Central Time, he and I had a meeting. Are you ready to hear what happened in the meeting?
What happened, Mike?
He didn't show. Mr. Shockett is chicken. I called at about 1:58 Central Time. I wanted to be a little early. I got on with one of his secretaries. I explained why I was on. She put me on hold. Then she got on. She goes, I need to put you on hold for a little while longer. I said, take your time. And shortly after 3 p.m. Eastern Time, she said, you know, Mr. Shockett isn't available, even though she agreed that it was in his electronic calendar. And he never called me back. And this is the second time we were supposed to have an interview, and we didn't. Bruce was easy to get on. We got him on. Ray Bonecrush was easy to get on. Tug, one of his cohorts, was nasty and rude to us. Shizzy was nasty and rude to us. Megan Fox, my former friend, was nasty and rude to us. Hales won't respond. Shockett can't, or doesn't.
Shara too.
Shara too. So we got all.
Oh, wait a second, but I do know where Randall Shockett was. My sources are telling me, Michael, that he's getting his PhD at clown school because he's already advanced in being a clown in the courtroom. But when they take away his license, he's going to have a new profession. So he's going to be, you know, a professional clown. I think that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. It's a rumor, so take it for what it is. But I heard that he may have been at clown school proceeding to get his doctorate in clownology. That's why he missed your meeting.
Right. He may be. You know what? I had one more segment, but we'll wait until next week. I didn't have it up. That is the end of the Hales segment. Now let's talk about Paul for a minute. He had a hearing this Monday. He said nothing happened. I'm sure something happened, but nothing of consequence. However, he has a new lawyer, and you found out a little bit about this guy. What's the deal? What's his name, and who is he? What's going on there?
Todd Bussert. He's a New Haven lawyer, and actually, I called up another attorney that I know. Actually, I know him from rugby. The guy's is Rich Portale. He's a brilliant attorney. He's a hot rod attorney up in Westchester in the state and the federal courts up there. He's a former prosecutor, and he's been an excellent state and federal criminal defense attorney for many years. And Rich Portale, I shot him a message. I'm like, what's with this Todd dude? He's I'm covering this case up in Connecticut, and he's the new lawyer. It's like, Todd is an A+ guy. He knows his stuff. He actually was my sponsor in the DC circuit when I went to get admitted down there. That's what Rich Portale told me. And he's like, oh, I'm like, oh, okay. So the guy's like been around. He knows what's going on, this, that, and the other things. It sounds like, maybe Paul has a pretty good lawyer. Well, you talk to Paul and it was like, oh my God, The guy went up to Jack Doyle and gave him a hug in the hallway. The fix is in. It's over. It's all over.
Listen,
this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's the worst. He's this, he's that. So you know how it is. All these guys know each other. He's not going to find a Connecticut attorney who's practiced
law.
for 30 years that doesn't know Jack Doyle. You know,
right?
So
you practiced law for a while. Is that a sign of trouble if the two attorneys on opposite sides are friendly or friends? Is that a sign of trouble?
Well,
can you put that to the side and represent Paul zealously?
I think more so this guy in this position can than even a private attorney, because he closed down his private practice back at the beginning of the year. And I think the guy Frost was his partner, and Frost has his own place now. And now this guy, Todd, he's the head of complex litigation for the Office of the Public Defender for the state of Connecticut. So what I guess this guy does is he's like the hotshot that goes and deals with the real intricate or problem clients. And this case is both. It's an intricate case and a problem client that have really big issues. Now, I think that he's doing it because, there's a multitude of reasons. I don't know his personal reasons, but the practice of law professionally is very arduous, especially if you're in practice. And to do it as, within the state with the Office of Public Defender, it's not as rigorous, I would say, as a private practice. It's still, you have to be on the ball. You got to be a good attorney. But I think the guy is looking for a different change in lifestyle and a different change in how to do things, and a lot less of the stress of running his own business as opposed to just dealing with cases. I think a lot of lawyers out there will tell you, if I had to, and a lot of lawyers in private practice, if I had to just go there and be a lawyer, it would be a joy. But I have to deal with all the other stuff involved, and that's what drags on me. So I think that Paul's got a shot with a good guy here. The question, though, becomes, how beholden is he going to be to the forces that be in Connecticut? So you got Joette Katz, the shadow of Katz that is being cast over this whole case, and the Connecticut judiciary and institutional people. Is he immune from that in the Office of the Public Defender's Office? No, but he's a little bit more immune than he would be in private practice, where people would, say boycott this guy or affect his bottom line. I think the fact that he's being paid by the state kind of liberates him and gives a greater argument of his independence. That being said, he does have friendships. He does have, professional relationships that he's cultivated over the years. Do those trump, the legal result? Does that get in the way of what should be the legal result? And the other part about it is this guy's versed in federal law. If there's anybody, I think, that could bring a Dombrowski motion to the federal court or test some of these quote unquote federal issues that Paul talks about all the time. One of them being the fact that the Dombrowski is the freedom of speech issue, that the case should be suspended or dismissed because of the chilling effect on speech, because it's so egregious, and he can show misconduct and everything else. And that's a 1965 case, Dombrowski v. Pfister. But there's also the issues about the warrant, and there's issues about whether Paul is a journalist, whether the blog is a media company, whether the Connecticut statutes apply. There are some technical legal issues that I think if this guy gets into those issues, he may have a shot there. There's also the issues about the depositions of the judges, the complaining witnesses, the judges at Samuel Court and Joette Katz. There's an issue about the bill of particulars. We'll see how this guy approaches that, because the last two sets of attorneys, and I know that Kelly Billings and the other two, Dennis O'Malley, I think they're still involved in the case, but this guy's taking lead now. But we'll see if there's any change.
What's his job title?
He's the head of complex litigation for the Office of the Public Defender.
Paul has been complaining that they won't give him someone who is qualified. Paul, you're not going to get anybody more qualified than the head of complex litigation. I think they've allayed him at the public defender's office. He's complained over and over and over again. They brought him the top of complex litigation. I don't think this is that complex, but then he's overqualified. Paul is a difficult client. He's difficult with us. He's difficult with everyone. That doesn't mean that he's guilty.
I love Paul. He can get carried away with things, but he's intelligent, and he's right about a certain, or at least he believes he's right about a number of things. But I'm just not sure if he appreciates the procedural weight that certain things have. In the sense that if you can knock a case out based on a Connecticut provision of the law, procedural provision. You want to go there first before you go to the constitutional issues. You go with the small issues before you go with the big ones, because if you can knock it out on a small issue, they can't argue about it. He wants to go with these big issues. Now, that being said, is a strategy sometimes you want to launch something in federal court, and he did already under Dooley, and he got nowhere. Paul did. Maybe with this attorney, he could try to get him to do it, or you get somebody to file something in federal court. But he has an injunction that's there that they didn't pay attention to. The fact that on the Dabrowski, and the other part about the warrant, he filed the new lawsuit about the extradition from Virginia, the warrant of extradition. So we'll see where those things go. But I like Paul attacking, and I like his attorneys attacking under the Connecticut procedure. Get the bill of particulars, get the depositions, hold them to reasons why they won't give them, and then chip away. Jurisdiction. How come there's not 3 different cases when there's 3 different judges in 3 different places? Those are the types of things that we need to look at. And I think that this attorney will at least do the analysis that's necessary to see what's an issue, what's a red herring, and if there are issues, which ones that Paul's most likely to succeed on and advance those issues.
All right, and to wrap up, Paul wrote up on a blog called The Family Court Circus. And you would say things like such and such judge is so bad that it would be nice if someone put a bullet in their head, a 50 cal. And what you mentioned about the 3 judges, there were 3 judges who complained that their lives were threatened. We don't believe they really believed their lives were threatened. They live in 3 different counties in Connecticut, which is why you say there might be a jurisdictional issue. For some reason, they've all wrapped it up in one county. This guy is the head of complex litigation. He is qualified to file federally, state. He's qualified to do this. Paul is complaining. The guy showed up for his first hearing, and Paul is already complaining. Maybe give the guy a chance and see what happens.
Oh, and I'm going to put out something, because Paul sent some issues about the ankle monitor, and that was the rule.
Hold on, before you. So
the judge
Paul
made.
hold on. Paul has recently been released from prison. He lives in Virginia. Even though he can go wherever he wants, I think in the continental U.S., for reasons that aren't clear, besides just to punish him, he's forced to wear an ankle monitor, which digs at his leg until it creates all kinds of medical issues. So what the judge said, well, it was on your right leg, move it to your left leg. So now the same medical issues are on his left leg. What's the update on that?
Well, he had argued that the ADA says he needs to have it on his wrist or someplace else where the doctor says he can put it. Not that he doesn't want to wear the ankle monitor. He doesn't want to wear it, but he's like, he doesn't want to wear it where it could medically, affect him. And Judge Brown came down with a ruling that said, no, denied. There's no ADA claim because to put it on a different part of his body significantly or substantially interferes with the way that they proceed, or the proceedings, or how they administer their program in Connecticut.
That's what's called a red herring.
It's a bullshit reason. Yeah.
Right. A monitor on his wrist does the exact same thing. And frankly, look, ankle monitors are old school. They're almost never used because they do create all kinds of medical problems. That's why they created them.
No, 100% wrong, Mike. The reason why they're always used is because of the federal contract and the state contracts. They have contracts with these companies that do the monitoring. They got to pay for the monitoring, this, that, and the other thing. So the reason why it becomes a legal, quote unquote, requirement is so that these contracts get paid. That is something that we have to look into if there's going to be like, if you have the state type Doge situation, in Connecticut. I know that Florida had put one in, DeSantis just announced the Florida Doge. But if you wanted to look at some of the stuff, look at some of the criminal justice things that happen with the prisons and with the corrections and a lot of the funding that happens there. That's the only reason why this judge could make that ruling. Brown could make the ruling that it interferes with the administration of the program because the correctional program is basically a pork barrel, creation. That's what it is. It's a giveaway to all the friends of whoever was in power when they made the rule. And so you have these private companies, to assert that private corrections, private prisons in some places that are doing monitoring. In this case, it's a private monitoring service. So either Paul has to come out of his pocket for it, or they get a payment probably from the federal government. So Doge might still get in on this to monitor Paul Boyne in Virginia, and this company's getting getting the money out of it. Now, if Paul wanted to be a real pain in the ass, and he likes to be a pain in the ass, I would look into not the ADA, but I would look into the ADA funding and who pays that grant to pay for his ankle monitor and then send that over to Elon Musk and his boys. That's what I would do if I were him. So I don't know.
All right, we're wrapped up the Paul Boyne segment. One of your recent articles, you found someone who apparently is 100 years old working for
105. Oh my God!
Hold on, what is this for? It's her. She looks really good.
That's beautiful, Marcy Bishop. And you know what?
Listen,
I don't have any problem.
That is the most attractive 105-year-old I have ever seen.
She's a good-looking woman for 105. She really is.
Is she
Very,
actually 105?
Well, you know what? If we're going to believe the public documents, she is. If you go down, there's a couple of reports that I received from several sources, and that were taken from like LexisNexis and some of these other composite companies that do public research. And these, and there's Marcy when she's not all done up, but she's next to Camilla Hanks, so she's the chief of staff on the left. And the right is Camilla
And you
Hanks.
and Hanks have a lot of history. Explain the history. Because people are going to say you're doing this because you don't like Hanks.
Well, it's beautiful. I actually didn't put this one out. This was Thomas Nance that put this. I just commented in the article. But beautiful Camilla, lovely Camilla. She's running for re-election, lovely Camilla. And she's about as crooked as the day is long. And so if you look at those two reports, Go back up, Mike, and we read them. The first one is Marcy D. Bishop. And you have the emails associated there and Sister Big Bones. And you have the address, which is blacked out for those purposes. I'm not going to dox anybody. But you have their phone numbers. They're different. But the addresses are the same. And then there's Social Security numbers. One is 120 years old, age 105. The other one is 1967, age 57. So what the hell is going on here? This is something that they're now. My problem with this.
She looks like a 57-year-old. So I'm going to guess she's actually probably 57, not 105.
Well, here's the question, Mike. My question is this. Before she worked as the chief of staff for the New York City Council, she worked for the district attorney of Staten Island, a guy named Mike McMahon. And so if she has this discrepancy in the public records that I could find or that somebody else could find, that anybody could find, right? How come this red flag didn't come up when she was hired by that guy, the district attorney, or by the New York City Council, by Speaker Adrian Adams, or by
they didn't do a background check.
Well, if you're working, wait, Mike, that's the point. If you're working for the district attorney, if you're working for the city council as the chief of staff in the city of New York, how do you not do a background check to find this and say, is this a discrepancy, or are you really pilfering? Are you really pilfering the system? Because even if she's not collecting on that Social Security number, assuming that it does exist, she could have other benefits coming to her based on the fact that there's a person that is of that age in the Social Security system at 105 years old. She can get all sorts of state and local and other federal benefits. And under the Social Security law, until just recently, and John Kennedy talks about this, the senator, they are not allowed to report deaths or the ages of people to other government agencies, state or federal, to cut off funding. So she could be receiving all sorts of benefits based upon this. This is also potentially identity theft, aggravated identity theft on the federal level. Now, this is already in the hands of the Eastern District U.S. Attorney, because this guy McMahon, and if you go down, if you want to read what my quotes were in this article.
We'll get to that, but I have a question for you. This lady right here, when you were an attorney, you did some legal work. I presume it was actually a fair amount of legal work, and she never paid you, and you are suing her, and you don't like her. So what you really did, because I'm a cynic, is get this guy to write a nasty article about her chief of staff. That's what's really going on here, isn't it?
Well, I put the proof right there. People can decide for themselves. But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to try to resolve this case. There's something you can do in New York called an offer of judgment. And I'm going to put an offer of judgment for her, for Camilla Hanks, for Kevin Barry Love, her husband, and for Ron Castorina. I'm going to give them an offer of judgment and a chance to resolve this case with me. Am I sick and tired of these people? Yeah, but do I wake up every day full of spite? Sure, that's what keeps me going. Some people drink coffee in the morning. I drink a cup of spite. And I'm going to drink it every day until the day I die. So I'm not going to go away, but I'm going to give them a chance to have me go away from them. And I'm going to give them an offer of judgment. So that'll be This guy McMahon is the one. He is the one. I love this guy.
Right, so
I wake up in the morning and I get dreams.
Hold on. He's the Richmond County, New York District Attorney. What Why is he important?
And he's the president of the District Attorneys Association, and his wife was a crooked New York State judge, Supreme Court Justice McMahon. And so that guy, if you see what I said about him, basically, he hates me because I discovered the fact that he has had Lazarus moments. He's a political hack. He's a Nancy Pelosi Democrat who loves Nancy. He was in the Congress with her, and he served in the Congress. And the fact of the matter is that he had, when he ran for district attorney in 2015, he had a guy named William Peck sign his designating petition. The problem was that William Peck had died several years earlier. So William Peck had a Lazarus moment and rose from the dead and signed the petition. But William Peck wasn't alone. There was a woman named Gladys Smith. There were several others that signed the petition, the dead people, and they died almost 2 decades ago, and they've been voting for Mike McMahon ever since. So this is your typical, this guy is so filthy from the Democratic Party perspective that, this is the federal points of emphasis they have, where you have a party where they have dead people that vote, where there's total dishonesty. The whole New York system is a wreck. And his entire philosophy of crime, you're going to say he's a crime fighter? Well, the most dangerous place on Staten Island is between Mike McMahon and a camera. Okay? The guy's a friggin' publicity hound. That's all he really is. He's a joke. The problem that they have on that island, and I love the place because I was born and bred there. I would love to live there, but they chased me out of town. And the fact of the matter is that the place doesn't get much better because of the fentanyl and because of the New York State issues, and they're not buying into to trying to fix this country. There's so much corruption and grift in that place. The feds have to come and roll through there and just burn the place out. That's what I would do. And I know Kash Patel is looking at stuff like this, and so is Pam Bondi, and so is everybody in justice. So it's only a matter of time, the reckoning with these people. So, but this whole Marcy Bishop thing is a real disgrace, because how does this guy, not know this? He's just incompetent. And how does this girl, how does McMahon not figure out? How does Hanks not figure it out that this woman's got this discrepancy? It could be a public records error, but if you're a lawyer, your job is to understand public records error. You come to, if I'm a lawyer and Mike, you come to my office and you bring me the title to your house, and I say, do a title check, and I say, oh, Mike, you got this, there's something on the title that's no good. There's some guy that put in a fraudulent deed. And I would say immediately to you, Mike, we got to get this off there so it doesn't mess you up. That's what you do as a lawyer. You look in there and you would get rid of a fraudulent deed or a fraudulent filing. This is a fraudulent filing in this woman's personal record, who's an attorney, who has been an attorney for a long time, and not just any attorney of the public trust working for the district attorney's office, and now attorney of the public trust working as the chief of staff to the New York City Council. That's somebody who should be incumbent upon knowing what's going on with her own personal history, because they don't know if she's being potentially taken advantage of by others for political purposes. That becomes potentially federal corruption. That becomes all sorts of things. And if she's doing federal benefits fraud, that's another problem. So these types of things have to be investigated. Who are these people if they don't investigate any of this stuff? They'll investigate the shit out of people they say are criminals, but if their own people are not going to investigate them on the way in the door, they're out of control. Out of control.
All right. You said Camilla is an absentee council member. You didn't say this. You got a quote.
I didn't say this.
She thinks she's better than the committee, and she's not part of the community. Said a county committee member who wished to go unnamed. No one trusts her, so we didn't endorse her as an incumbent. The North Shore needs change. You went on to give another quote. Camilla Hanks is so poorly regarded in New York City government. If she wanted to talk to Adams, her best chance is a seance with John and Abigail Adams.
That was a good one. That one didn't come from me, Mike.
Right now, I know you use a lot of anonymous sources.
And you have to with political stuff, though, because people get burnt politically and they get targeted politically. It's very, very vicious. So you got to worry about it.
Isn't it easy for someone to go off if they know that they're going to be anonymous?
But then that's how you're going to get truth. You're going to get unvarnished truth from people that way. You're going to get the unvarnished truth from people. So that's what you want.
All right. So you have no problem with the amount of anonymous sources you use?
I don't have a problem with that because of the fact that people, look, I have my opinions about the New York Times and the Washington Post, and other people have opinions about what I write, what I put out, or what the people I deal with put out. These guys, I'm on that article only because I gave comment. and because, it came out of my outlet. But the fact of the matter is, people are going to read and decide for themselves. That's the whole point of the media. You put the ideas out there, and people can say, "Oh, I don't believe this is bullshit," or "These are the points that I don't believe." The people can come to their own conclusions. But the facts are the facts. The facts are the public records show a discrepancy with this woman, and that's a problem. That's a problem on many levels.
All right, so let's move on to my article. I found some interesting stuff. I interviewed this woman. Her name is Tess Vega. She is a teacher in Florida. Now, a couple of years ago, she tried to do her taxes, and they said, "We're not accepting them. Someone using your Social Security number has already filed their taxes, and they got a nice big fat refund." So she went to her congressperson, and after she went to her full name is Teresita, so that's why you see the Dear Teresita. And her congressperson is Aaron Bean. He's a Republican, and this is what his office said. "The tax advocate assigned to your case called me today. Please see attached for the redacted return and let us know if that is what you needed. She confirmed that the 2021 return was filed in just your name. They cannot provide the account or routing number for the account the refund was directed deposited into, and there is no recourse that the IRS can take against the filer. She said that you would have to turn it into a civil matter regarding that." Tess said she found out that's because the IRS will not prosecute people, will not go after people who do engage in identity theft if they are a family member. Now, I asked the IRS about that. They would not respond. I don't know if that's true, but that seems to be a pretty big story. If the IRS will not prosecute identity theft if the thief is a family member. But wait, it gets worse. Tess then, and Tess believes it's her ex-husband that did this, Michael Dale. So she tried to install a security system, and the security company said, "Hi, Tess, I wanted to take a moment to recap what happened when we tried to schedule your ATT fiber installation today. When I tried to verify your credit for the order, I received a message to contact ATT with you on the line. When the ATT agent answered, he stated that the reason we couldn't set up was because the system was reporting that you were listed as deceased. I can assure you Tess is alive, as you can see her. No one would, and she believes Dale did that too. What's going on? He gets to file her taxes for her. He gets to say someone is messing with her, and no one will do anything about it. What's going on here?
Who's this scumbag congressman that comes around and says?
I don't know if it's the congressperson's fault, but it's Aaron Bean.
No, I think it is. I think it is the congressman's fault because he's a Republican, and he's going to come and you have a situation where this is what you call aggravated identity theft. If they went in and they went in there and they said the person's dead and they stole money and they did this and did that in order to frustrate things, there definitely is something federal that can be done. And if he was
the congressperson can't do it.
If a congressperson is worth their weight or their salt, they'll get answers from somebody who can do something. They'll go all the way up to the U.S. attorney, the local U.S., or they'll go even to the DOJ. They'll go to the FBI. They'll go to all sorts of the Treasury and find out what the hell's going on, because this is a policy that obviously, I understand why they do this, because they don't want to get involved in family disputes and everything else. But there shouldn't be a bright line because of family disputes when you have aggravated identity theft. This should be in the hands of the U.S. attorney.
You understand, this letter confirms that there was identity theft. They said they have.
It's not just identity theft, Mike. It's the second letter, too, shows that there's a pattern of behavior. This is an open and shut case in front of a jury. This guy
I don't know if she went to Bean. I don't know if she went for a minimum. I don't know if she went to Bean for this, but as you can see, someone is doing some very serious things to her. They're filing her taxes for her. They're saying that she's deceased, and she believes that that is Michael Dale, her ex-husband. No one will do anything about it. This is why people get cynical about law enforcement, because they do believe that there are two tiers of justice, one for regular people and one for connected people like this guy Dale.
I think that an article is in order about that congressman. I think that article would be great. I think that you should shame that bastard into doing something. That's the shame right there. He's the one, because when you were elected representatives are the ones that's supposed to be your ombudsman with the federal government, and that's the problem.
I agree with that. You have another update in Monica Ciardi. Before you give the update, she is still sitting in jail. Am I right?
She's still sitting in jail, and there is a
wait. Hold on. Let me summarize, and then you'll explain. She's facing up to 33 years because she wrote a Facebook page where she forgot to quote what the judge said. So they are claiming that it looks like a threat against the judge, when in reality she was just quoting what the judge said. Something about taking her kids away, which he did. His kids are adult. No one can take those kids away. The case is clearly political. It's clearly retaliatory. And there is a connection to Chris and his brother, Todd Christie, the former governor of New Jersey. But you have an update. Judge Bogart. Who is Judge Bogart?
Before I do that, I'm going to give breaking news, and I'm going to have something out on this. Basically, the arraignment, right? The post-indictment arraignment for Monica Ciardi has been scheduled in the New Jersey public access system, the New Jersey court's public access, for March 20th, 2025. So that is 1 week from tomorrow. Let's say Thursday. Next Thursday, March 20th, 2025 at 9 a.m. The judge is Michael L. Ravin, R-A-V-I-N, and the attorney, she has a private defense attorney that she hired named Casey B. Breslow. And it's going to be in the Superior Court in Essex County. It's listed as an in-person hearing at that point. I do not know if there will be a public link available. I do not know if there will be a Zoom link available, but there will be an in-person availability. We'll see. But I'm going to be putting out an article about this. I also have the New Jersey courts, basically their secret police are looking into everything that I'm doing because they believe that I'm undesirable, and that relates to this case. So this case that I just wrote about it's not a case, it's actually more about systemic corruption and a guy named Judge Peter Bogard. And Judge Peter Bogard is
this guy right here?
That's that guy right there. He's the one who said to Monica Ciardi, if you don't do what I say, then you will never see your children again, basically, to that effect. And if you go back up and play this quote right here. This is from another case. And so this is him on the bench.
I'm not so sure you're helping yourself and making yourself look good. Okay? Again, you write well. It's not as if, I mean, believe me, I have some cases where people are doing things that are, crazy. I'm calling Adult Protective Services on a case right now. They're closed today, like his birthday, believe it or not. Because of some stuff that the person posted and put out there.
So he admits from the bench. In another case, he's lamenting on the birthday of the great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln, that he couldn't throw Monica Ciardi in jail because she's crazy. He's a judge that's acting not as a judge, but he's acting as part of the prosecution. He's acting as part of the political establishment. And that's just the tip of the iceberg here of what I put out there. Okay. And there's more to come about this guy and the tangled web with that guy, Chris Christie, and Lori Bogard, who is his wife.
He's tight with this guy, Bogard.
Bogard, Christie, Bucco, Senator Bucco, who was, basically the father's dead, but he ran the place. This is the new judge they put in, Oliveira. They put her in a midnight appointment. So she's the little hatchet girl that came in to clean up for him. But the fact is, if you look here, when Bogard demanded the names of the sex crimes investigators in the divorce case. So there's a case that the woman in the divorce case said that she was raped and sexually abused by her husband. And the judge is demanding who the investigators are in the case. You'll immediately give me the names of these people. Now, doesn't that seem a little bit odd to you, Michael, in a place like Morris County?
I don't think that's supposed to be allowed.
I don't think it's allowed anywhere. It's an independent investigation. The judge should receive it when the judge receives it, like everybody else, as an indictment and as a presentment. That's a separation of powers issue. But it invites corruption. So I'm going to have more about that story. I put in Manny Gomez, who's the great private investigator, and mentioned Judge Sherry Eisenpress in New York because
I know Judge Eisenpress very well. Loves to handle kids, pedophiles, and others.
from Rockland County from Orange County to Rockland County now. She's been taken off the bench, or Rockland moved to Orange because of what's going on, and they have a RICO case against her. And the same type of situation may be very well happening in New Jersey very soon. Now, I have more stuff that I'm going to be releasing on Judge Bogart. I'm going to laser focus on Bogart for the time being, and then take the circle out and show who's involved. But Bogart, and you'll love this one, and I'm going to publish this in the next few days. He took this case, and the person who was one of the people in his divorce case is a husband who was on the Mendham, which is a city in Morris County, town council. He's also a very a wealthy guy who has a business that does procurement for the municipalities in New Jersey. So he would service the contracts for the NYPD, for the New Jersey State Police, the Morris County Police, for police vehicles. So this guy is beloved by the police. Now, he also has Lori Bogart as his campaign person in Mendham County. Lori Bogart, the wife of Judge Peter Bogart. So when this guy walks in the courtroom, any judge in their right mind says, okay, I have to recuse myself. I'm too connected to this case. I can't hear this case. What does Judge Bogart do? Doesn't do a thing. He gets asked to recuse. He doesn't recuse. And we have economic evidence that shows within 30 days of the case going to Judge Bogart, Lori Bogart became the owner of a condominium in Florida. And the down payment for that condominium was paid by the litigant in the case in front of him. Now, I'm not saying that there was fraud.
No,
I'm not saying there was a bribe, but I'm saying there definitely should have been a recusal. That never happened.
No, that's very, very bad. You may not have proven bribery. You've gotten really close, but you've definitely proven impropriety.
Appearance of impropriety. 100%. So I'm going to be putting that out about this case and some other case. There's another, the same judge, Bogart, did the same thing with Jill Jones Soderman. She's been a guest of ours on the show. Right. And Jill is an accomplished person, and she's an accomplished expert. She was disallowed as an expert in front of Judge Bogart. And Judge Bogart said from the bench, and I'll play this audio. Judge Bogart said from the bench, Ms. Jones Soderman is an accomplished person. She's got experience and education, but she's a judge hunter. And I'm not going to put a judge hunter in as a witness, as an expert witness in my courtroom. That's
not how it works.
That's how it works in Morris County, New Jersey, and that's why I believe
if you are qualified to be an expert, you can testify, as we learned in the fabulous movie My Cousin Vinny. All right, so let me talk about one of my stories. Are you familiar with the term body broker?
Body broker?
Yeah, this is a kind of relatively new. There's a 2021 movie, as you can see. There's the poster for it. This is when people scheme to falsely put people into drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities and get kickbacks from the facilities. Now, I criticized you for using an anonymous source. I will be honest that the main person in this article asked to be anonymous. I wrote it because without him being anonymous, obviously I wouldn't be able to write it. I wanted to write it, and that was the only way we could write it. So this guy James, I think it was March of 2023. He collapsed. His liver or something was just going crazy. His neighbor called his ex-wife, who was a registered nurse, and she called this guy Joe Wagner, and she drove part of the way, and then Wagner picked him up, and they went to Solution Point, a rehabilitation facility that was about 4 hours away. Now, Solution Point, when they got James, they said, no, you got to take this guy to a hospital. He's way too sick. For the next 2 days, they called James' mother, who lives overseas. James was not born in the U.S., and they extracted $15,000 from her because they claimed to her falsely that the rehabilitation center did not accept insurance, except that's a lie, because according to the Affordable Care Act, it has to accept insurance. He got some of the money back. This happened on a Friday. The following Monday, he finally came out of, he was basically falling in and out of consciousness. He called his mother. They then tried to extract money back. And Wagner shows up to his room, and this is Joe Wagner right here, and he says, you still need to go to Solution Point. And so James said, well, what happens at Solution Point? And he couldn't tell him what happens at Solution Point. And he believes that Joe Wagner is a body broker. And so what's interesting is, as you can see, according to his website, he has facilitated 1,500 interventions. He does all sorts of things related to drug and alcohol abuse. But what I found about his business is it's almost impossible, because from the time that he set it up, I think it was 2007, to the present, every about year to year and a half, it's shut down because his paperwork isn't in order. So it's almost impossible for him to have done 1,500 interventions. Also, he claims that he has a license from the California Consortium of Addiction Programs and Professionals. However, as you can see, it says that it was expired. So he's not completely honest about his license. What James described certainly fits the bill with a body broker. This guy might be a body broker. There is a very serious issue with body brokers, in particular in Southern California where this happened. And so that's something people should be aware of. You know, you've never heard of body brokers before, right?
Oh, I've heard about stuff like this, but this is pretty crazy. This is at the level of this is something to look into. Wow, this is a whole thing. This is in the drug and addiction. Wow.
I know, pretty crazy. Anything else you wanted to add?
I have a couple of things. I'm just going to go for twofers that I'm going to be doing coming up. One that I'm going to be doing is about one of my favorite judges, Ron Castorina in Staten Island. Now I'm going to do a twofer about Staten Island justice with him and a guy named Judge Ray Rodriguez, and the crappy things that are happening with some of their cases and potential federal intervention. Castorina, the case, we talked about the cop Gaetza Minetti. That case was derailed by Castorina for years. It's now in front of Judge Paul Marone, and we'll see what happens with that case. But you have a real scumbag attorney on Staten Island named John Marangos, who basically is he's basically playing the victim there. He's like, I only beat you because I love you. The abuser type line to this guy who's a pro se, disabled, retired NYPD hero from 9/11. And this guy's done everything in his power, Marangos, to try to make this guy look like he's done something wrong in the lawsuit, get attorney's fees, to get contempt, to get this, to get that, to get the other thing. And we'll see, because it was all set up really by Castorina and his crap on the case. And now it's in front of Paul Marone. Now, Castorina hates cops from what I can see. He's just a cop hater. I don't think Marone is. Marone's actually a pretty good guy from what I know from him. But we'll see how that case goes. There's another case, or a bunch of cases in front of this guy, Rodriguez, who I know also from back in my Staten Island days. He's turned into a real hack on the bench. He's a Democratic Party person that they put in there, and he's in the foreclosure part. And some of the stuff that he's been doing in that foreclosure part, rubber stamping stuff, is egregious. He's rubber stamping cases by banks that don't even have jurisdiction over people. And so that's probably the biggest thing, is like you have banks that come in with mortgages and try to foreclose people, and they got to serve you. So think about the fact that if you're somebody from that lives in a house, right, and you have a couple of entrances to the house. They come and they try to get you. They know that you have a job because it's listed in your stuff. They know that you work. They don't go to your job to try to serve you with the papers. They go to your house, but they go there. They can't get you. Nobody answers the door. So then in New York, they have something called mail and mail service. So you can affix it to the door and then mail it by U.S. mail. But they don't prove the fact what door they affixed to. And so maybe, Mike, if it's your house, you live in the side door or the front door, and somebody else lives in the other portion. They can't prove that the service is done correctly. Then months later, you get a notice in the mail that your house has been foreclosed on. So there's no jurisdiction. You've never had any notice of this case. And this guy gets brought up in front of him, and he has a pattern of just ruling for the banks when it's clear that these banks are gutter serving people all around Staten Island where there is a lot of
scheme
multiple interest
to
houses.
not serve people so they don't know that the foreclosure action is happening, and then
They don't know the foreclosure action is happening.
What is the judge's name again?
Is Ray Rodriguez.
Ray
in
Rodriguez.
New York, Judge Ray. So I'm going to be writing a nice article about Judge Ray Rodriguez. And I'm also going to be writing about Judge Ronald Castorina, my good buddy. And we're going to talk a little bit about these people and what they've been doing.
All right, so I got an interesting story coming up. So I've done several on this case. Gustav Berdalli, he goes by Gus. He's been placed in the conservatorship because in California they can't be like everyone else. They got to call it conservatorship. While he's been in conservatorship, his son Glenn, who was either the conservator or the trustee, gave him a loan from a company that really doesn't do bank loans that's since been foreclosed on. Now, this I've already written about, and now they're trying to foreclose on his property. But do you know what I have found out since?
What? What do you got?
The loan that Glenn gave may have been on paper. It's like $3 million, and I don't think that Glenn actually gave any money to Gustav to fix up his house, or what the loan was supposed to be for. This may have been a paper loan. It may be a scheme that Glenn
like an asset protection scheme, the asset strip.
Right. Now, look, if this is true, they foreclose on the property, they sell it. All right. There's enough equity in that property that they will give Glenn's company the amount of this loan that was never actually funded. And Glenn will walk away with several $1 million. That is the sort of scheme that if you are caught, you go to jail for quite a long time. That's what I'm working on.
It's called asset stripping. And if you do it the wrong way, it's called bank fraud. So a mortgage fraud. So you go to jail for that. But you can asset strip correctly if you do it the right way. But if you don't do it the right way, you go to jail.
No, this doesn't look like it's the right way. And look, this is a part of the conservatorship. So there's supposed to be multiple layers of people who are supposed to be protecting Gus. There's past 90. And none of these people protected him. So look for that article in the next week or two. That's all I've got. You got anything else?
I got a couple things to promote. One, I'm going to be doing an article, a write-up. I just got this from Dr. Luigi DeRuba up in Connecticut. He's got a really interesting case against his old divorce attorneys. And they actually were a couple, Calabrese and Shreya Chavan, or Mohan something or other. And they were married. The husband and wife team were married, and then they decided to get divorced. So the lawyers decided to get divorced. They filed a lawsuit against DeRuba claiming that he signed a mortgage while he was their client on one of his properties to secure the fees. Now, there's a whole bunch of bells and whistles when you have a situation where you want a client to sign a mortgage. Well, they're already your client because of the fiduciary duty that attorneys have. You need an independent review. You need all that stuff. But on top of that, they go and they sue on this lien because they're liquidating their law firm based on the divorce, and they don't have any of the paperwork in order. So he files to get the discovery. The judge throws out the case because of the discovery sanctions, to say that these attorneys, you don't have it. You put this in hastily. You throw in paper. You don't have this thing. You're trying to get this money from this person. He turns around and he sues them. Oh, he didn't sue them. He grieves them. He files attorney grievances against both of these attorneys. He answered one of them already, and the group says, or the attorney grievance committee has already said, look, the case with the mortgage is still about to be thrown out. It's in the final throes because the attorneys filed an order to show cause to try to reopen it. So when that motion gets resolved, we're going to docket the grievance. We're going to hear the grievance because there's enough here. We believe there may be probable cause. They said, they're signaling attorneys deal with this guy, pay this guy off so you don't get we don't have to act. But this goes to show a very important point. Michael Volpe, Luigi DeRuba, a chiropractor, Michael Volpe, the journalist, even Rich Luthmann, the journalist, anybody else, no matter what you do, everybody has a job or a profession. And when you go to divorce court, they don't cut you a break because you have a big story you got to cover, Mike Volpe, or Dr. DeRuba has a big client, a big patient that he has to treat. Why should an attorney get special deference because they were behaving poorly or they had commitments during their divorce? This is a bit of a double standard where lawyers get treated differently than everybody else in divorce court, where I can see situations where you have surgeons, top surgeons, and the judge tells the surgeon, "We're having a trial on these dates. I don't want to hear that you scheduled the surgery on these dates. I don't care about who the patient is. The patient could be the president of the United States. You're not doing surgery on these days. You have to be in my courtroom for the divorce." There are judges that have said things like that from the bench. How do these lawyers get a break when nobody else gets a break?
That's
the story. That's the story. Well, I've written about it already. This is going to be the follow-up on the story.
I've done a few things on Luigi's case. He's a very good chiropractor in Connecticut. It's a horrible case, but everything you're talking about, none of that I knew. So continue to peel the onion. We will be back next week. I am Michael Volpe. This is Richard.
And a quick promotion of thefamilycourtcircus.com. Mike Volpe's contributed. We have Julie Holborn Anderson, who's been contributing Family Court, and we're trying to put together a good roster of Family Court people to put some of their pieces up there as a good hub for Family Court journalism. So thefamilycourtcircus.com, the transformed post-Paul Voigt version of it.
All right. Have a great week, everyone.